get any eggs from a nest or things like that, he will. If he can get the birds, he can probably get those too, but usually doesn't have much luck at that. Down in captivity, you think about raccoons, you think about stomachs of titanium, they can do grass, just about anything. And he's very similar. So if you look right here, all of our animals have these feeding lists that are very detailed. This is probably one of the less detailed ones. A lot of them are multiple pages. It's based on the specific diet and the smaller one needs to have no diet, no representation, anything you can eat, they can eat. So we have cheeseburgers, you have cheeseburger, pizza. Obviously, just like us, we don't feed that every single day. He gets a lot of great hard-boiled eggs, fruits, veggies, but also even eating bread, anything like that will mess up his stomach. It's completely fine. Not susceptible to anything like that. It requires care. Now, we've had him since he was very little, so he's very used to being out of the field. So I used to ride on minivan, get him involved, he was this big. However, toga and quad bunnies in general are extremely territorial. So it's quite difficult. First thing I did was take my phone and my radio out of my pocket. Because if he gets a hold of that, I'd rather find it out with that. You're trying to take something from them, they're not necessarily going to do it, but you're trying to grab something and they're going to try to grab it back very, very quickly. Yeah, a good example of this is one of my best friends visited the farm, and I was showing him her photos, and he decided to put his phone on the ground to video the photo all over it. And I was turning around washing my hands, and I turned around and he was down and his phone. The coach tried to call us, and he was scared to take the ball away. He got completely exhausted down. So it's cheap, but it's very, very easy to get out by hand.
So his contact
Also, he also lived in the house for about 6 months of his life. The end of living in the house where he was, he can open absolutely child lock up everything they have it, he might just piece the sides together and hold down. I mean, no problem. And his favorite thing in the world to do was grab things, take him up to the second story, shut him from the dock, and he's so ready for the house toys. So it would be, when the afternoon came out, okay, this is what crashing down overhead. That was the end of it. And I'm sure we accelerate this to get it into closure a little bit.
raining outside. They're animals. They go outside. Huh? They've ever been in the rain. Ask your dad. Once a wet kid, how you go to the Sloth?
No, we have other stuff to do to get wet.
This right here is 15 she's very dragon. You are more than welcome to. She's very friendly. So the key is like I was saying, if you're looking at 15 things, you want to have a guess of what habitat she might be from. Desert, exactly. So honestly, when we get to desert, yeah.
Is it going to be like pearl cotton?
We don't think of the sand being too orange, but she blends in perfectly with the sand out there. When she burrows down, the spikes will be the only thing that's sticking out from the sand. If you look at her mandibles and defense are one, blending in, she's very hard to see in the desert. Two, these spikes on the edge, they're all have the consistency of these armadillos. They're not actually spiky at all, you can feel them. But they're also big for understanding that she would not be one to eat. Especially their own bearded dragons, their deep and bearded, like full of spikes. She gets upset, her character will see and flare that up, make that look also very spiky. Their eyes. So she's also relatively an easy keeper. She can eat insects, she enjoys insects, but mainly here, the only time we use insects is when we need to have insects for our leopard. This guy right here is Kangaroo. Named after a Bakugan. You guys have ever seen those? He's still on a Bakugan as a kid. This is a Brazilian three-man armadillo. The only one that goes into a complete ball. And their tail comes along about their head and all that. These guys are pretty neat. These guys are mammals. I'm going to let him run around. He hates to run around. He is a male. We're trying to find a female for him. My dental name is Shaka Khan. I'm not familiar with that reference, but I'm sure you guys are. However, as hard as it is to come by a Brazilian three-man male armadillo, it's much harder to come by a female. So if you guys have ever seen an armadillo out in the wild, or you're seeing a nine-man armadillo, which has anywhere between 7 and 11 bands. But this guy is a three-man armadillo, you're not going to see him around here. Other things about the nine-man armadillo, they don't completely put into a ball like these guys. Your tail kind of touches their nose and they throw up almost like, but it's not a true genuine ball. Just these guys. But like I was saying, it is hard to come by a male three-banded armadillo. It's much harder to come by a female. Armadillos vary the vast majority of the time when they have litters. They have 4 identical quadruplets and they're all males. So it's very hard to come by female three-banded armadillos, which makes it a little bit harder to find Stanley Parker. Now he's still a baby. He's young. I think he's about 9 or 10 months old. But when he's full grown, he'll be the size of a soccer ball. And according to any reputable online source, they can run up to 30 miles an hour, which shocks me, considering that's Usain Bolt level speeds. But I mean, I suppose I haven't timed it and someone has, so I'll take their word for it. Another thing about them, he is a mammal, so this is kind of like his outer layer, but it's not a shell. So it's not a shell, mammals don't have shells. Also, you can see that his hair goes through it, so it's not. So like this, here is actually his skin, and you can see where hair goes through it. So it's interesting, not technically a shell. You guys, yeah. And you guys can hold them if you want to. I just ask that you hold it pretty low. Right. So you guys take them up like so. He'll eat a few insects, but mostly leafy greens, and then also I believe we give him some like protein pellets in order to like kind of replace sort of an insect kind of diet. But he's also a pretty easy eater. He stays in a box of shavings, and he likes to just burrow in the shavings and sleep when he's dead. But he's a cute little guy.
So what's the
I'm not exactly sure the exact term. Do you know what it is, Kevin?
For what?
What exactly is, I don't think it's keratin. What's their, like, shell, skinish thing made out of? It is keratin. It is keratin? Yeah, and on the outside shell is actually called keratin.
When they first born, it was like a little leathery ball, and then it kind of comes back together.
Man, look at all the flies. We just sprayed all that into it.
So they have, I guess they have claws. They're good diggers, right?
Yes. Yeah, just like he burrows in the shavings out in the wild, they like to burrow in the dirt lots. They'll make little bowl-sized holes for themselves.
So the armadillo, the giant anteater, and the sloth are all part of the super order of Zathorans. So the super order of Zathorans means hinged spine. So those three have the ability to all fold upon themselves. Then if you look at his front claws, they really look similar to the sloth claws. Like they look almost identical. We obviously believe that God created them, but we appreciate the designs that all three still have. Because those are the mammals that still have that ability to fall all the way up into the ball. Because he lost his playmate,
He wasn't playing nicely.
but they were spitting in each other's faces.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
So you know, it's like the two brothers. They just sit there and fight, and you separate
And then you
them.
separate them and then they cry, yeah. And my kids, I used to, if they weren't nice to us,
This girl right here is Penelope.
Yeah.
Penelope is the hedgehog. She's just waking up, so her spikes might be a little bit soft. You are welcome to pick her up. You'll have a better experience if you try to pick her up from under the stomach. She's nice and soft there. She did just wake up, so she could hear poop on you. We have hand washing things. Just have to let you do it. There is a chance. She usually doesn't. If you pet her, I recommend you pet down the back. If you pet up, you'll have a very different experience if you have a first aid kit. If you so choose. I'm going to set her down and you guys can pick her up and grab something real quick.
I know.
So hedgehogs are also mammals. A lot of people have asked me, can hedgehogs shoot their quills like porcupines? I tell them exactly like porcupines, because porcupines cannot shoot their quills either. However, their quills are very different. If you look at a hedgehog quill here, very, very tiny. Not really any sort of fur on the end.
So this bigger bowl here is for him, and he can have all that's in there. We'll look and see if we've got any green beans that are in here. Green beans are his favorite. And so when we feed Flash, we kind of just feed him like a little reverse Pez dispenser, where we give the end of it to him, and once he takes it, he'll just take the rest of it. They have really bad eyesight, so we don't gonna get him, let him get a hold of your finger or anything like that. You can feed him all this, and sometimes he gets a little bit picky, but we try to offer all of it to him.
Okay to take a picture?
Yeah, that's fine. I can take some pictures with you standing next to him too if you want. Sometimes sometimes when he lowers down like that, it makes a pretty cool picture to stand right next to him. I'm sure he'll do Yep, so just real nice slow pets like this down his back, and go with the movement of the hair. Flash is 6 years old. We got him when he was about 3. And he came from a facility that was just observation beforehand. And so he wasn't used to any type of interaction like this. So it took John, the owner, really about 2 years of just working with him, spending time with him, talking to him to get him comfortable enough to come down and spend time with him. And then from there, he slowly started to try to introduce, hand feeding his breakfast, like we do with our encounters with him. And it took him a long time to get comfortable enough to do this with us. But our other 2 sloths, as you could tell, Dash was already antsy trying to get out of his basket, because that's what he loves to do. That's what, from a young age, he was conditioned to enjoy that. So that's what he wants to do. That's his happy place. This is the first time that you've ever interacted with a sloth?
I went to a place in Florida a couple of years ago. We couldn't hold them, but we were like close to them.
Yeah. And you can stand real close to him, I promise he won't bite you.
So yeah, we could, and they didn't even let us feed it. They fed them corn. And we could basically get it next to them and take a picture.
Yeah. So we've had Flash for about 3 years. He was 3 when we got him.
And then I heard you're getting a 4th.
Yes. Hopefully soon. We thought we were going to get her last month, but she ended up not passing the final ambassador test, which means that they do genuinely enjoy being held by people. So she just went to a facility that would be more like observation, similar to where he came from, so she wouldn't feel like she has to be interacted with all the time. Reaching out, trying to get his breakfast
Is that what
here,
you're
yeah.
going, like, if you're not feeding fast enough?
You're just not feeding me fast
He's a
Two-fingered, yep. And we used to say two-toed, but, you can see that he has 3 toes on his back feet, so it gets a little bit confusing. They all have 3 toes on their back feet. It's the front feet is where they differ. See while he's hanging there how easily it is for him to just hang with all of his weight just by 2 back feet, and even just 1 foot. He can hold his weight from 1 foot, and they can do that from the moment that they're born.
Wow. Okay, where are you? Try.
About us trying to hold all of our body weight up by just 2 hands like that, it would be definitely pretty difficult to do that. But for them, it's effortless. It is essentially they're using no energy to do that. So it's opposite for them. If we were to try to clamp down and hold onto a branch like that, we're using muscles and using energy to do that. That's why it's harder for us. But for them, this is their relaxed state, whereas this is our relaxed state. So it's opposite, which is why it's so easy for them to hold on to a branch like that all the time. But for them to actually loosen up and have to go, reach for the next branch, that's what requires work and requires energy for them to do. So since sloths are notoriously very slow, they, if they're not eating and they're not sleeping, they're just hanging there and digesting their food. So they don't feel like they constantly have to be doing something like we do. see our lives, they're like, why do you have a sloth in your bedroom? I'm like, how many people do you know that their bedroom is painted like a rainforest?
I know. No precious, just feed me. So no precious, just feed me.
Sloths eat about 10% of their body weight every day.
Dinner.
Since they only use the bathroom once a week, every 7 to 10 days, they really gain a lot of weight before they go to use the bathroom. And so when they do, they expel about 1/3 of their entire body weight. And that's not just solids, that's liquids as well, so they don't even pee in the
Don't
tops of the
pee,
trees.
yeah. Man.
He's hungry this morning.
It's hungry.
And you can see how dilated his pupils are, and they stay like that in dark and light areas. And they have a really, really narrow field of vision. So essentially, if you were to cut both of your hands together and look through like a telescope, that's about all they see. They have no peripheral. And they also have what's called rod monochromacy, and that's a genetic disorder that causes them not to have any cone cells in their eyes. They only have rod cells. So the cone cells are what's responsible for seeing color. So they are colorblind since they don't have those. But rod cells allows you to see motion, so they can see things moving quite well, but they can't distinguish what it is, or if it's something that's coming to get them, or if it's just a butterfly that's flying by. So in the wild, anything that is moving towards a sloth or by a sloth is bad news for the sloth. They want to get away from it, and their goal is to get to the end of the branch.
It's a little bigger piece of it, yeah. Yeah, okay.
All the crunchies. So in the wild, you've seen pictures of sloths that have a lot of moss and algae and things like that that grow all down their back.
Makes it
And
a little
they,
greenish.
yeah, and so they use that in the wild for camouflage. Obviously, we don't have any moss and algae here in captivity because they don't get rained on all the time like they do in the rainforest.
Okay.
And then a bigger piece for you.
Harder to chew. Yeah.
He says, I don't want that.
That's, okay. That was too hard to work. A little softer.
So in the wild, sloths have an entire ecosystem that lives on their back with all the moss and algae. But to be considered an ecosystem, you have to have a living, breathing being in that. And that for them would be the moth. So they have moths that live all throughout their fur.
Oh, really?
That they have a big long scientific name, but it's essentially called the sloth moth because that is the only place that moth will live in the entire world. And they are native to the rainforest, so we don't have any here. But in the rainforest, they play a huge role for the sloth, and so does the sloth to the moth. So they have a symbiotic relationship, meaning that both parties benefit and both parties need each other to be able to survive. So the moths benefit because once a week when the sloths come down to use the bathroom, they use the same tree, the same side of the tree, the same pile that they went the week prior, and they will do that the rest of their life that they're in that tree. And they do the same thing here in captivity, even though they don't have any moths. It is very hardwired in them that that's what they are supposed to do, to be able to keep repopulating the moths that live on them. Because when they come down to use the bathroom, they kind of scooch their booty down on that pile as they're going to the bathroom, and those moths will come down off of the sloth and lay their larvae in the dung pile of the sloth, and then crawl back up onto the sloth before it catches its ride back to the kennels. And then a week later, the sloth will come back to that same pile, and the larvae that was laid have now developed into adult moths that will climb up onto the sloth, and the cycle will be repeated. And so obviously it benefits the moths because it's just a transportation to and from their breeding ground, basically, and they've got moss and algae that they're living all throughout so that they can eat. But it also benefits the sloths. So when the sloth turns around to groom themselves, they will lick up a portion of those moths, and that's their protein source in the wild. They'll also lick up a portion of the moth's waste that's in the sloth's fur, and that's where the sloth gets the bacteria to be able to digest its food. So they don't digest their food through an enzymatic process like we do, it's a bacterial process. And if they don't have that bacteria or enough of that bacteria, it begins to be pretty difficult for them to digest their food. So in the wild, they have a constant supply to be able to replenish that bacteria colony. But here in captivity, obviously they don't have those moths that live on them. So it kind of beckons the question, well, how do they get that bacteria and how do they maintain that bacteria? And that's on day 3 of the sloth's life. So when the sloth is still just a tiny baby, it will climb up onto the mother's chest and lick the mother in the corners of her mouth. Because when she eats, her saliva froths up with the food that she's eating and will kind of gather in the corners of her mouth, and the baby will lick that. The bacteria that the mother has in her gut is also in her saliva. And so when it mixes with the food and the baby licks that up, that's where the baby gets the first bacteria to start to develop his own bacteria colony. So the sloth will keep that bacteria colony the rest of its life as long as all conditions and requirements are met. So they have really specific humidity requirements, temperature requirements, dietary requirements. They're very low stress. You don't want to, stress them out too much. Everything has to be just right for them to be able to keep that bacteria. And if they were to lose some of that bacteria colony, then it can lead to some issues like really infrequent bathroom habits, having diarrhea, going more often, things like that. So the sloth can get pretty dehydrated pretty quickly. But since we have 2 other sloths, say if Flash were to ever start to have an issue like that, we can do a fecal transplant, which it is what it sounds like, but you can use the healthy stool from another sloth and transplant that into the sloth that's having some digestive problems. Just try to start to kick up that bacteria growth again, but it's still, it's pretty difficult to get that back up once you lose it. So having a sloth is really delicate and intricate, and everything has to be just right for them to be able to have a long, happy, healthy life.
You've got a full belly.
And that's kind of another cool thing about sloths is that once they are full and they get their belly full, they can just stop eating. So unlike myself, I can have a full meal and then still want some ice cream afterwards, but their digestive tract is so slow, it takes it about 30 days to digest everything from start to finish. And so because of that, they can't just continue to eat after that system is full. Otherwise, they're going to get pretty backed up and pretty bloated.
So how many times a day do they get?
So Flash mainly just he'll get his breakfast, which is that bowl, and he kind of finishes it like throughout an hour or 2 while he's hanging out here. And then in the evening he gets his evening food, but he'll come up and down in his enclosure throughout the day, and sometimes he'll start kind of pecking at the window, trying to get us to open up that door, and we'll let him out just to hang out, which is why a lot of times, sometimes, you have an encounter with Dash later, and we could have Dash out doing his encounter, and then all of a sudden we hear a little tap tap at that door, and he's trying to come out. So we let him out. We just let him do what he wants to do. But we always preface it by saying that, this isn't part of the original encounter, but this is just kind of a bonus. We let him do what he wants to. We're not going to deny him access to being out here and spending time with us.
That's why he's tap on the window.
Yeah. What do you think, bud? You don't want no more right now? They take a lot of little micro naps throughout the day.
Oh, do they?
Yes. So scientists used to think that sloths slept upwards to 20 hours a day, but actually after doing a little bit closer research and realizing that a lot of the times, if you were to look at him from the back and he's not moving, he's not eating, you think he's sleeping. He's not moving around at all.
Alright.
But actually after viewing that they are awake, their eyes are open, they're just not doing anything, they changed that number to be about 15 to 16 hours a day. So not as much as they originally thought, but still a lot of sleep. And it's spread all throughout the day. It's not long naps at one
Actually go
time.
down their throat as well.
I mean, do they always hang when they nap?
They do.
They do.
Yeah, and so since they have that locking mechanism that are in their paws or their claws, their muscles and tendons in their forearms are so tight that it naturally snaps down like that is their relaxed state. So if a sloth were to pass away hanging upside down in a tree, they would not fall from that tree because this is just normal for them. And so they would continue to hang upside down in that tree until something rotted or knocked them out of the tree. So it's pretty cool. And that's why it's so effortless for them to hang like that. Because we moving around and extending those claws, that's what requires work. And since a sloth's diet is so low in caloric content, they don't have a whole lot of energy storage to be able to just be moving around and exploring and traveling through the trees doing different things like that. Unlike, for me, if you were to tell me to sit down and do nothing for 2 hours straight, I get pretty bored pretty quick. That's because, I eat a lot of food, probably more than I should sometimes. And so I have a lot of built up energy, potential energy that I can, use to walk around and go and do things. But sloths don't have that. So if they're not eating and they're not sleeping, they're just hanging there doing nothing and digesting their food. But everything that is inside of a sloth is meant to be upside down like that. So everything from their eyesight, the locking mechanisms that are in their claws, their digestive tract, the connective tissue that's holding everything, their circulatory system, everything is meant to be upside down. And so some scientists speculate that when they're hanging like that and their heads are upside down, what we think of upside down is actually their right side up. And so they're seeing everything right side up for them. But if they were to fall out of the tree and be, flat down on the ground, that would be like they're upside down. They're kind of disoriented from that. It makes sense because everything else in the sloth is designed to be that way. So I would agree with that statement, but not all scientists agree with that. So if you think about for us, if we were to hold our hand up for just like 5 minutes, already I can feel that the tips of my fingers are a little bit numb.
Yeah.
That's because all of the blood is starting to pull down into my shoulder. But for them, they have a specific circulatory system that has specific valves that can slam close and push and pump harder as they need to, depending on the position that the sloth is in the tree. So they're, he's hanging with all 4 of his limbs stretched up in the tree right now, but he is still getting circulation to all of those extremities, while not allowing the blood to pool all the way to his head, especially when he's upside down like he was earlier, hanging just by his back feet. And so their circulatory system is specifically designed to be this way. And their digestive tract is also, so they only have one-way valves in their digestive tract, while we have 2-way valves. So we have the ability to vomit, but they do not. So even while he's hanging upside down like he was earlier, eating his food, he's like defying gravity to get that food into his stomach. If I were to try to do a handstand and eat something, it's not going to go very well. I'm not going to get it down very easily. And that's because we have 2-way valves. But for them, it goes in and then slams closed and does not allow anything else to come back out. And sloths also have a total of 46 ribs. So that's double what we have. So it's 23 sets of ribs. And so that's kind of a little protective casing for them. that also has connective tissue that's adhered to the ribs, going all throughout the organs and the intestines of the sloth to keep everything right where it's supposed to be, suspended in the middle of the body cavity. So even when he's hanging all the way upside down, extended down, everything is still staying where it's supposed to. That design helps them to be able to withstand falls from up to 100 feet in the air. On average, the sloth falls out of the tree about once a week, whether that's due to a miscalculated step and they go to grab a branch and they grab their own leg because their eyesight's so bad, or something is after them and they end up falling out of the tree, trying to evade that. But for them, most of the time that's okay because they can survive falls from so high up in the air. And so for them, it's really best case scenario if there's something that's after them going out after the branch and they're just trying to get to the end of the branch. They're wanting to get to the end of the branch so that they can both fall out of the tree. The jaguar, whatever it is that's going after them, is almost certainly not going to survive that fall because their organs and their intestines are not designed specifically to stay right in the middle of their body cavity, and ours is not as well. So if we get into a car accident or if we fall from 100 feet, our body cavity is going to hit the ground, and then our organs and intestines are going to slap against our body cavity, and we're going to sustain a lot of internal damage from that. But they do not. That's not an issue that they face whatsoever. Unless they were to fall right on their noggin or something. But most of the time when a sloth falls out of the tree, they just kind of go spread eagle, and they just fall just kind of like a little pancake.
You'd always see the videos like they're trying to cross the road or something, stop and help them.
Yes.
Process.
And before I knew anything about sloths, I saw a video of that one time. There was a big sloth that was trying to cross the road, and moving on ground is the slowest form of transportation for a sloth. So they're already really slow in the branches, but on the ground it's even slower. So he was trying to cross the road, and this guy goes over and gives him a branch and picks him up by the branch. He's holding on to it and kind of starts to transfer him across the road. And I start to see all of these bugs and moths and everything crawling throughout, and I'm like, oh my gosh, give that thing a bath, it's sick. Like, why has it got all that growing on it? It's probably why it's on the ground, but that's actually natural for them. That's normal for them to have all of those on them. What do you think, Flash? You're being very boring this morning. You just ate rather slow and left.
Got my belly full and I needed a nap.
So stay all the way over here in this corner. That's another thing about our sloths is that, we never force or persuade our sloths to do anything that they're not comfortable with doing, or they're just not ready to do. So with Flash, like I said, it took us a long time to get him comfortable enough to come down and just spend time with us, let alone begin to eat his breakfast out of our hands like that. So everything is a really, really slow process with sloths, and Flash's enclosure goes 20 feet up into the
Oh, is
air.
it?
So his is actually in
This
there.
one? Okay.
Yeah. But, so if he goes all the way up into the top where his hammock is at in there, which is all the way up right there, and decides that he does not want to come down, then he's not coming down. We can try to persuade him and see, tempt him to see if he wants to come down here. He loves bananas, and they have an excellent sense of smell. And so we'll kind of go in there and blow a banana up towards him to try to get him smelling that and see if he wants to come down for us. But we never force them to do anything that they don't want to do. And so oftentimes, if he goes over there and just kind of curls up in a little ball and does not want to interact anymore, then, it is what it is. Unfortunately, you go to the VIPs right after this, we'll have Zoe that you get to hold, and that's a real treat. And it's a good thing too that we have the 3 sloths just in case. There's been days, just last week he was having a day where he just did not want to come down. He was wanting to sleep in, he was staying in his hammock, did not want banana. He kind of like peer over at us and look at us like, no, not having it. So we ended up just having to, yeah.
Good napping day.
But since we have 2 other sloths, oftentimes if he is just completely not having it, then we'll, offer them if they wanted to trade out and just hold Zoe or Dash. since he's just kind of hanging out there, not really wanting to do much, we can go ahead and get Zoe out. And if we have her out here sitting down and feeding her, usually he wakes up and he's like, hey, you got some more for me? So we'll see if that works.
These
Are so bad right now. It's ridiculous. They've been putting live bait and stuff out there and everything. Yes. So this is what Zoe loves to do. This is her happy place. Ever since she was a baby, when she first came here, she was 4 months old. This is what she loves to do. She would rather be holding on to someone than being in her hammock by herself. But Zoe is very specific in the way that she likes to be pet. So she only really tolerates just really nice, slow pets like this down her back. She does not like her hair to be disrupted, you know, like little cat scritches sometimes that people are tempted to do.
baby.
So just down with the flow, the movement of the hair is the only thing that she likes. And we have to be careful with getting around her sides too. She's really sensitive about, and sometimes she'll be exploratory and leaning around and showing you her belly, but she does not want her belly to be touched. So I will, if you want to have a seat in the blue chair too, I can take a lot of pictures of you holding her as well.
Oh, aren't you usually? Oh, you can put your feet to.
Alrighty. So I kind of set her in your lap, and she will wrap her legs just like this around your torso, and then you can support underneath the booty.
Oh my goodness. Good morning.
See if she eats her breakfast. You better wake up now, Flash. So Zoe is 16 months old.
Okay, so she's really.
Yeah. And so we got her from a completely different situation than we got Flash from.
Yeah.
Flash, now, like I said, he was in a facility that was basically just observation beforehand.
She's coming.
And, you know, was never interacted in this way. But Zoe came from a facility that a breeder has been doing it for over 30 years. He's actually a doctor of veterinary medicine as well. And he has a lot of sloths.
And are they from the United States
Yes.
or?
And he's basically the #1 supplier for all of the zoos and organizations like that that have sloths. That's pretty much where everybody gets it from, is from him. And so we do have a good relationship with him, and if we ever have any questions or anything like that about anything, he's always on speed dial and ready to talk to us, things like that. So you really have to have a network of specialists and things on call to be able to answer things like that, just in case anything were to go south at any point. Especially with these guys, because they're so sensitive to change and temperature requirements and everything. What are you doing? And so you can see that her claws as well are a lot smaller than Flash's are. But as she grows throughout her lifetime, those will grow as well. Yeah. And as she climbs and uses those claws, they kind of dull down a little bit with age. So his, you can see that are pretty dull. Because he climbs a lot more than this girl does. She prefers to spend her time on someone or in her hammock.
Yeah.
She's hungry this morning, Kevin.
That's good.
But we also got Dash from the same place that we got her from. And so they actually have an ambassador program. You know, I was mentioning earlier about the baby that we thought we were going to get and ended up not passing that test. And so all of the babies are slowly conditioned from a very young age to enjoy this interaction. So,
I'll have them stop.
So their hearing is pretty keen, since their
Yes.
vision is.
So since they can't see a whole lot, their other senses tend to be heard really well, and they can smell really well. And so a lot of times if Kevin opens up that door pretty quickly and closes it, they kind of jump because they're like, oh my gosh, what was that? And it's a lot louder for them than it is for us. They're a lot more sensitive to things like that. Especially the smell of banana for this guy. But, and since they can't really see that well, she can't distinguish the difference between me or you just by vision, but she can hear the difference. So she knows my voice and she knows the different inflections that I put behind things that I say. And so she knows who I am just from hearing me. And the same thing with Kevin or John, especially if he walks in and says anything, Flash would wake up and start going to the end of the branch because he loves John.
Oh,
And for
yeah.
the first 2 years that he was here, John was his primary, keeper. I wasn't here yet, and he was the only person that, spent time with him. And back then we did not have as many employees as we do now. There was only like 2 or 3
Yeah.
workers on the farm.
Or do you mainly do sloths? Or
Yes, yeah, so I'm primarily the sloth keeper, but
Got the best job. She got the best job, doesn't she?
I also help to keep track of all of the with vet records and doing vet work and things like that, because I'm wanting to go to vet school. That's what my end goal is. And so I'm hoping that with this experience, be able to put that on my resume. It'll look pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Help me out with that. So when she was really young, her mother was clicker trained to know that when she heard a clicker noise, that she got a little bit of a treat, and the breeder would just borrow baby for just like 10, 15 seconds, and then give baby right back to mom. So it's always a positive interaction that they have with baby sloths, so that mother or baby gets stressed out. And that time will be slowly increased as baby allows, and as baby gets just a little bit older.
It was from the outside.
Oh, I was like, what, you knock your dog?
And they're still out. They get
Oh
some.
my goodness. It's pouring out there now. And so by the time that she was weaned, around 4 or 5 months old, of the mother's own choosing, it's always the mother's choosing, it's never influenced by the breeder at all. She's used to being held for upwards of 30 minutes to an hour a day, and she's completely fine with that, and that's the same with all the babies. Now, they do go through a final ambassador test before leaving the program to ensure that that is genuinely what they like to do. They like to be with people. The breeder already kind of has a good idea about it by that point, because some of the babies, not very many, but there are a few that just kind of tolerate the interaction and don't really enjoy it like Zoe does. And so those babies will end up going to a facility that's just going to be more of an observation. There is no doubt that she loves this type of interaction, because when I go to put her back in her hammock, if I don't step out of the room pretty quickly and I just kind of hang out there in the doorway, she starts to climb through the branches. And she does not climb unless she is trying to get to her food bowl or trying to get to someone. So she spends most of her time in her hammock. And so if I'm to stand there, she'll start to climb through the branches at me. She starts reaching out, and they do make a little bit of a whining noise. She kind of goes, woof, woof, trying to get my attention to pick her back up. You still sleeping? Says, yeah, that noise scared me.
Yeah.
What do you think, so? She's almost always hungry. She's going through a growth spurt right now.
I guess when she was a baby when y'all was with her, yeah.
Yeah, she was 4 months old. She was really small.
Go ahead. I was thinking about pressure washing the side of the camel condo porch, where the llamas move and all that stuff. Start working down the porch. I don't know how far I'll get, but I don't have anything scheduled for me on the POD, and I was going to check with you if there's something else that I need to work on, or if that sounds good to you. Nicholas has already started on that. Oh, okay, cool.
So Zoe's only 16 months right now, and they don't really mature until they're about 2. So she's still got it just a little bit longer. And right now she's on a mixture, obviously, of the same thing that Flash is getting, just chopped up a little bit smaller. And then she also gets a mixture of brown rice, shaved up sweet potatoes and a really high quality soaked dog food that's soaked in water to make it kind of mushy and then mixed all in. And this high quality, high protein dog food is where she gets her protein from. Up until she's 2 years old, and then around 2, they switch over onto 2 hard-boiled eggs a week as their protein source. So some of the bigger breeders can opt to, get small bugs and insects that are imported that they can eat, similar to what they would in the wild. But since we only have the 3 right now, it's not really worth it to try to push it in.
Rice and sweet potato sounds pretty good.
And Flash loves it too, although he doesn't need it because he's on 2 hard-boiled eggs a week. And he was not raised on that mixture. So Zoe and Dash both were from the breeder that they came from. But since he came from a different situation, we don't know what his dietary background was before we got him. Which is why Zoe's only 16 months and she's almost as much as Flash weighs. So she is most definitely going to surpass what he weighs and be a bigger sloth than him. And that's all just due to, what their dietary upbringing is. They're not fed all of the things that they need to be fed or things that will fatten them up like that rice mixture. They have a little bit of a slower start. And since their diet is so sensitive, we don't want to add in a whole bunch of that rice mixture, even though he would probably eat all of it. We don't want to add that in because that would probably upset his stomach just a little bit. If you're still going to be hungry, I'll have to chop up some more of these veggies.
Where'd she go? Where'd she go? Need some more food. Need some.
So where were you from?
We live in near Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. So how long of a drive is that?
Normally it would probably be about 5.5 hours. We came up, spent a couple of days in Swain County, so yesterday when we drove here it was only like 2 hours
Okay.
from there.
Yeah. You guys have any other encounters booked for the day?
Well, I've got the baby sloth, and then we're gonna do the farm tour.
Oh, okay, that's a really good option. But you get to see every animal on the farm minus like the sloths and doing the things that you say more so are just the encounters that you book for those. Like the bottle feed and the baby kangaroos and things like that, which is, oh my goodness, it's the sweetest thing
I
ever.
bet it is.
And she probably is. She didn't want to eat her breakfast yesterday morning, so she ate her dinner pretty good, but she's probably making up for a little bit of lost intake. That little tongue just flops around every time she chews.
Lower temperatures in here.
Yeah, so since they can't maintain their own body temperature, we have to keep it in here at a constant 78 degrees. Around 78 to 85 degrees is their sweet spot. And they have to have at least 50% humidity. And so this faucet here, we hook up once a day as needed to mist the top of Flash's enclosure, and it goes down. And then we hand mist Zoe's enclosure to make sure that it stays just humid enough in there that is what they like. So you can see kind of the coloration difference too with Dash when we first came in. He's a lot darker. What are you doing, buddy? He's just up there. But when they're younger, they are a lot darker. They actually pretty dark in their head. It's pretty much like that all over. And as they get older, it starts to lighten up. She's still,
Notice the baby's pretty dark.
yes, yeah.
Animal condo.
So she's still got several darker splotches all throughout, but
I don't
as she gets
think
even older, it will lighten up even more, just along with how he is. She says
Now, any chance, like breeding here, like,
We don't have any plans right now for the foreseeable future with, doing any breeding. The breeder that we got them from has been doing it for over 30 years, and we wanna make sure that we have enough, experience. And plus, we're still a small organization, we've only got 3 slots right now. So, we'll see in the future, but for right now, we don't have any plans of that.
there's a little place near us that had, some animals, and, they had a sloth, and then they came in and warned it was a baby, because they didn't know it was.
Oh my goodness.
They just came in and swallowed it, it was a baby
Oh
sloth.
my heavens, well, yeah, that's where we started. Thankfully, these guys are babies when we first get
Yeah.
them, so.
Yeah. I'm surprised.
I don't like these, I like meat things.
I'm sorry, my operation, I don't know where it was there.
Getting full down, girl.
And sometimes too, I know you've watched some of our videos, if you put your hands up underneath her butt and scoot her up a little bit higher, she might hook around your shoulders and kind of snuggle up against your neck. That's something that you want her to do.
What do you think, girl?
Is maybe not right. I'm trying to decide if you're still hungry. Can we take some pictures for you?
Oh my goodness.
You look nervous. You look scared that she's around your neck.
I know, sorry, I love it.
Good. But they do tend to pick their people too when they're young, and they spend a whole lot of time with one person. They'll kind of pick on, and that'll be their main person that they like to spend time with. So when Zoe was still little, up until she was a year old, she stayed in the main house most of the time. And they did keep it 78 degrees in there, which is crazy, but in their bedroom they have a different heating and air conditioning system. And so they keep it quite warm in there. And up until she was a year old, she stayed in the house. And since Zoe was our first sloth baby, we wanted to spoil her and do everything just right for her. And she wanted to be held like 99% of the time. And so that's what Donna did. Donna's John's wife, and she's like the mastermind behind this whole organization that we have here. She does everything on the virtual sides of things, handles all the booking and the website and everything. And so Zoe would just kind of hold on to her all the time. That's where she wanted to be, and so Donna just let her do that. And she got so attached to Donna that Donna can't really come down here and do these encounters with her anymore, because if she heard Donna in the same room talking, yeah, she could care less about you. She's just gonna be trying to get to Donna.
Well, my name's Donna. So
So is it?
yeah.
So I'm trying with Dash, since he's still little, he stays up at the Manny house for the most part as well, but she tries to not, hold him quite as much as she did with Zoe when she's feeding him and small interactions and things, but when he's down here, I try my best not to be the only one that holds him, the only one that feeds him, because I don't want him to get so used to me and just me that I can't do encounters with him, since that's my job, that's kind of what I'm supposed to do. So I would not be able to just, let him get so attached to me that I wouldn't be able to do encounters with him. So,
Yeah, you could do this all day.
and it's pretty nice too on slower days where we're not fully booked. In the summer times we tend to be pretty much fully booked, but they all have pretty strict schedules that they stick to. And so for her, usually in the mornings we have either at 10 or at 10:30 we start with flashes encounters. So we do 30 minutes with him, and then right afterwards, so either from 10:30 to 11 or 11 to 11:30, she's having her encounters. And so if she, for whatever reason, if you hadn't booked the VIP and just did the flash, then I would have probably gone in there and held her for just a little bit afterwards, because she starts to usually kind of roll around and anticipate us going in there to pick her up afterwards. She was still sleeping in this morning, but most of the time she's already woke up and she's kind of holding on to the edge of the hammock there, looking like, when are they going to come get me? But we are really particular about the time that we get to spend with the sloth, and the time that we allow other people to spend with the sloth, because, you know, we talked about how much they do sleep, and because of that, they need a lot of time to themselves just to be able to do that. You know, she's taking her a quick little cat nap right now because it's pretty relaxed right now, but us, you know, if we're moving around, they just want to be on us all the time. We're moving around, talking, doing everything, so they're not going to get that good of a sleep. So we do give them time to be able to just be in there in a quiet room and have their time to do what they want to do.
And I say I don't do excursions or whatever on
Well-
Sundays to kind of let them rest. or-
Yeah, occasionally on Sundays, like, we'll come down here, and since we don't book encounters on Sundays, we'll spend more time with them, and we'll bring them outside sometimes if the weather's nice, and just let them hang on us and, you know, do things like that. We try to keep them, usually we'll go up there and sit underneath the pavilion so the brightness isn't blinding them. Because they do have bright blindness, the rod cells they have in their eyes work best in dim lighting. And so having an LED right above flash, sometimes, you know, it's even worse for him to see. So that's why it's so dim in his enclosure, to be able to, for him to see just enough to be able to climb around and not have any tumbles. We do have a net underneath there just in case, you know, it wasn't taking any time a tumble like that. But we've got cameras in there, and to our knowledge, we've never seen him fall out of the tree. Yeah, he is. And that's how he likes to sleep too. He pulls himself up real close to that branch. Are so bad in here, I don't know. That camel, has anybody told you about that camel that's out there screaming like
I've
that?
seen the little baby, that's not the baby.
Yes, the
Is that
white
the
one that's
baby?
out there.
I've seen, he's
Yes,
so cute.
oh my goodness.
Well, we get to see him during the tour. thing.
Yeah, they'll talk about him for a minute.
Good.
Yeah, but he had a, little alpaca that was in there with him. And he was, that was his companion animal. He wanted to be with him all the time. But Prince Ali, the camel, he was just kind of pained to be the alpaca and would get him riled up sometimes where he would spit in his face. And while he's a white camel, and, you know, green face on a white camel doesn't look the best, and we kind of got tired of having to clean that off. Plus, Elvis, the alpaca, was just not thrilled with the interaction, and so we ended up taking him out, and we're trying to wean him from that relationship. He still is just not happy about it at all. I hope the weather clears up here a little bit.
Yeah, I made it sound like it was going to hopefully clear up around noonish.
Oh, okay, good. I don't think we have any. I'll have to double check. I don't think that we have any more encounters with Flash right after Hugh, so we may be able to let him, you know, go back into his room there, and you can kind of see how he climbs up. I have to double check and see if there's anything right afterwards. Yeah, he's just not happy about it. If you look at a sloth's fur under a microscope, if you look at one hair, there's a lot of tiny little micro cracks all throughout those hairs, and that's what allows them to be able to start to form that moss and algae that lives on them. And it'll stay there, in those little micro cracks and start to form that moss that grows on them. But since these guys don't, when it's raining, we close the outdoor area so that they stay inside. You got an itch? Are you picking it? Oh my goodness. It's not very ladylike.
Now, what's the weight? What do they normally weigh?
So the two-toed sloths, they can get to be up to 15 to 20 pounds. The three-toed sloths tend to be a little bit smaller than the two-toeds, and so they won't get to be quite that big. And comparatively, the two-toed sloths are built more like trucks with the ribs that they have that go all the way down, almost right up against their hip bones. And then just how much bigger they can get and everything. And then the three-toed sloths, they tend to be more like sports cars. So they don't have quite as much oomph to them in the trees. But they're still, those are the ones that you see pictures of that have like the brown that's right across their eyes, and their noses are a little bit shorter. And they tend to have the markings that look like they're constantly smiling. And those, a lot of times you'll see pictures of them too, where they're hanging in the trees and they've got their neck turned all the way back looking at the camera. And that's because the three-toed sloths have 3 extra vertebrae in their cervical spine and a little bit of a vertebrae of a tail. And so it's thought that that tail actually helps them to, when they come down to use the bathroom, burrow a little hole in the dung pile that they've already made. And with doing that, a lot more of those moths can climb up onto them a lot easier. So it's thought that the three-toed sloths actually have a greater population of moths that live on them compared to the two-toeds. And so their nitrogen and all of the things that elevates the levels with having those moths are higher, just because they've got more on them. But the two-toed sloths, they don't have that extra vertebrae in their neck or as a tail, but they make up for that in their lumbar spine, so in their lower back, and that allows them to be able to turn their back 180 degrees. So when Flash was hanging down earlier and eating his veggies, he could actually turn while he's facing, his hips were facing this way, he could turn that spine to look all the way behind him like that. So it doesn't really work, if he's hanging all 4 feet in the trees, but if he extends all the way down, he can look behind him. So, pretty cool. But you just get the whole experience today too with doing Dash later. And Dash is a lot smaller, not as much as the arm workout to try to hold him.
So I was asking about the weight.
Yeah.
Be the solid side.
Yeah. Especially her, and especially right before she uses the bathroom. And the next day or two, she should be going to the bathroom, so she's already kind of developing a little Buddha belly down low. She's kind of shaped like a pear right now. But after she goes to the bathroom, then she's like ravishly hungry for a day or two. Cannot get enough to eat. And she slims down a little bit as well.
You can actually tell the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. When you hold it for that long and you expel that much, it
Yeah.
makes a little bit of a difference. And some people, I tell that to, they're like, man, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, I don't think I would want to gain that much weight before I had to go to the bathroom. Because it is, they gain a lot of weight right before they go.
How many staff do you have on board now?
Do what?
How much staff? How many staff?
So now we have 19 employees, but just like a year and a half ago, they just had like 3. So it has really been, we've added a lot more encounters, we've added a lot more animals to be able to do encounters. Now we've got the Fennec foxes that those encounters are slowly starting to get up and running. And they're in the house right now, but they're about to come down. Their enclosure's almost done to come down here. And then we've got Georgie, the spider monkey.
Oh my gosh, that video the other night was hilarious. He was on the bed,
Yeah,
playing peekaboo, with the pillow.
yeah. And so he should be getting a friend here soon. When
Oh,
we find
yeah?
him a girl, get him another one. And then hopefully that'll calm him down, because right now it's like, Vladik is like his number one person. He's like clinging to Vladik all the time. He's the one that you'll see walking around with him on his shoulders. And so he's like obsessed with him. So I'm hoping that we get another one, they can just kind of play together, especially like when we're all busy and he has to go into his cage for a little while. They can just play together in the cage and not feel like they want to get out so bad. Because I feel bad for him, you know, if we get busy, a lot of things you can't do with a monkey on your shoulders. And so if he has to put it up for a little while, I'm hoping that if we get another one, that'll kind of help him settle down and just be able to play, have some, call it naked time. You just take the diaper off and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, we're gonna have to diaper.
It's on, by the way. Hey sis, we actually are doing encounters now. That's what Tatum's getting ready to do. So if you guys keep watching, she's going to be doing the Fennec fox encounter. And sometimes there's one fox and sometimes there's two. But it just depends which version of a zoo we're going to be to you. You know?
Encounter up here. Can you send them to the pavilion, please? Yes, I will.
I like my little Dr. Seuss rendition. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, sis. And then we are going to be doing encounters with Georgie the monkey also. They'll be up soon. And then we have the bottle feeding with all the baby animals, camels included, llamas, sheep, goats. And then we have the hikes online too. And then I think that the horse rides and the llama trekking should be up there soon also. I'm gonna go over there and set it up so it doesn't look like a parade. Sorry guys, I'm trying not to drop. So this is gonna be the Cuddle Cottage. And we're gonna come over here and do the encounter. We've had a little bit of rain, so it's made things kind of entertaining.
Sorry, it's raining and a little puddle jumping here. That's a good reason. Good reason to get out. Awesome. Chairs for y'all. Are y'all okay with being on media? Sure. I'm just double checking there. Alright. So this is Finn, our Fennec fox. Hey buddy. Since we're in here, he's not gonna escape on us, but I'll let the long leash go here. Hey baby. When you hold on to him, you can. I typically like to just slip my finger like kind of through this, just kind of, because he's gonna spook, and if he spooks, he's gonna climb up, obviously. But it just saves on scratching. So who's gonna hold him first? Yeah. He's pretty chill in here. It'll take him a second to get calm, but he just likes to be petted. He's gonna be a little curious to figure out his surroundings. So this is a Fennec fox. He's a little over a year old. He's pretty much full grown.
Really?
The max weight is about 3.5 pounds. Only 8 inches tall. So yeah, he's a little guy, but he serves a lot of purposes for his height.
You're so beautiful, honey.
And you can pet and rub and scratch on him. Oh yeah, y'all can take all the pictures you'd like. Any videos that you would like.
Well, make a loud noise now versus another.
Okay, yeah, so he's gonna lay down there. Good boy, buddy. Is it quieter in here for you, bud? So he has those really large ears for 2 reasons. One is for heat transfer, to get heat away from his body so that he stays cooler. And the second one is for hearing. So they're like solar sonar hearing ears, because he can hear things underground. When it gets really quiet, he'll use them, and you can see and feel the blood vessels in his ears. And that way, if he knows there's something underground that he'd like to have for dinner, he'll wait it out, he'll stalk it out, and he can hear it, and then as he'll listen for it and as it moves, and then as it comes up out of its hole, he can leap up to 3 foot to get it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're a little hunter.
They're super quick.
So soft.
Oh yeah, he is, isn't he? So just like cats, they groom themselves. He does have a girlfriend. Her name's Gwen.
Where do they stay normally?
They're up in the main house. They have their own kennel up there. And so we were hoping to have some babies, but they can get up to 20 miles an hour. So that's why we keep a finger on them or the leash on them. In here, it's not so bad. He's not going to escape on us. But out there under the pavilion, sometimes he gets a little spooked. What is it, buddy? So they like it really, really hot. Oh, you're so cute right there. Yes, I'm in a fox encounter.
Never mind. Ashley, do you have a radio?
So their color is very pale, and that's to help them to blend into the African desert. And then underneath that really soft hair,
Do you know
closer
where
to the skin,
automatic, hand sanitizer refill canisters are?
we are out of them. There's another sanitized station beside the bathroom. To help in the deserts. But underneath, right up against their skin is actually wool. And that helps to keep them warm. Because, you know, anybody knows the desert's super hot and then goes super cold.
Yeah.
And then on the palms of their feet, they have a lot of hair, and that helps to keep them from burning on the sand.
Wow. How old is he?
He's just over a year.
Wow. How long is their lifespan usually? I mean, in the wild.
About 12 to 18 years.
Oh, wow.
In captivity, most animals live longer,
Yes.
depending on the animal. It's a little different with reptiles, actually, because we mess with the reptiles' natural habitat and the way they eat. We think everything should eat.
Yeah.
So we feed our reptiles very often.
Yeah, we have a chameleon, and I
Oh
always
my
want
goodness,
to
we
feed
tried
them more
that.
than we should.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really tricky.
They are. They're high stressors.
They're super finicky.
Yes, they are. We had an adult one that was, and which was cool. It was given to us, and he was already mature.
Yeah.
He wasn't as difficult, but now the baby was. Yeah, they're tricky. You're right.
Yeah. We had to do a lot of research.
Oh yeah, for sure. You liking that, buddy?
So relaxed.
Oh yeah. So he does like really hot temperatures, especially like in the wintertime. There's a fireplace up in the house,
Yeah.
and he'll go up in the house and he'll lay in front of the fireplace.
Oh. I love how you just like tap, 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 tap. Trying to figure out how to get comfy cozy. You're just trying to figure it out, aren't you? You don't want to. Is it okay if I move in?
Yeah, absolutely. And he'll probably a little wiggly on you. Just until he gets comfortable again. Just like most animals, they're on high alert all the time. Good boy.
So beautiful.
So cute. So soft.
So soft.
They shed a lot, just like a cat, though. I was out there brushing them, and I'm like, there's hair everywhere. They are omnivorous, so they'll eat plants or animals. You can be camera shy.
Look at her shine.
They live in big communities. They're kind of like prairie dogs. There'll be lots and lots of them. They stay pretty tight to their own family, but they'll live with other families.
Okay.
So you'll see them kind of like prairie dogs. There'll be a bunch of them out together in one big den.
So cool.
That's so cool. His little poofy tail is
Yeah, I know.
like a wolf or like a regular fox.
But they can run up to 20 miles.
20 miles an hour.
That's so wild. You are a good little hunter.
What do they eat?
It can be plants, berries, and then if they had to, they could eat lizards, little bugs.
That's probably what Mimi ate before we found her. One of our cats is from a gas station. She
Oh,
still tries to catch bugs and eat them.
yeah,
We're like, okay, so we know what you used to eat.
yeah. which is kind of good on their part because they could survive a lot.
Yeah.
And because they are used to such high heat in the desert, their kidney function is adapted to where they don't require a lot of water.
Okay. That's good.
So this was warm.
Yeah. Mm. Is he toasty, huh?
I know, he's a good snugger, huh?
Up in the house, he will lay on the dog.
Really?
So if the dog lays still, he'll climb up and curl up and lay on the dog.
That's so cute. They all get along.
Pretty good, yeah. Not at first. Jax would keep running away from him, and then he finally just gave up.
Yeah. It's intimidating. They're
And
big.
so then we got Finn, a girlfriend, Gwen. So we're hoping that we can maybe have some baby foxes.
That'd be cool.
That would be awesome.
How long have you had him?
Since last summer? I'm trying to think if we got him in the fall or in the spring of last year.
So most of his life?
Yeah, he was a baby. He was just weaned when we got him.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big are they when they're born? Are they pretty?
They're pretty tiny, like a cat. Yeah. When we got him, he was like half that size. Like he was pretty small. And of course, the big old ears.
Right, that's what I was.
So small he could fit through the grate of his cage. That's how little he was.
Oh, he's so small. I was just trying to get cozy.
You trying to find somewhere to hide.
Cozy.
He doesn't have a den in him, does he?
No, no den. Look at a hand. Got hands to hide under. If you are done. I know, it's kind of fun to look at his face. You can't see his face so good when you're holding it. Are you sleeping? You sleepy guy. Oh, little Finn.
But I have to say they're a little bit more rambunctious than a cat. Now they do have their little cat tower and they'll lay in it. But if they're out and about, they're running nonstop.
Yeah,
Loves to play with toys. He'll throw his own toys and then go fetch them.
that's awesome. That's what my cat does too. She'll just throw it for herself. He's a little more, or less stubborn than a cat, probably. 'Cause he's not trying to do anything. You try to get a cat to participate in what you want to do. It's hard. He's so beautiful. Little honey.
You get to do this every day?
Yeah, it's actually just new. So this
Really?
week I just got introduced to doing this. This week it's been, we've had quite a few requests for it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have Fennec foxes at the Chattanooga Zoo,
Oh yeah?
but I'm sure they have an encounter, but I got this as a graduation present, a little gift card to the farm. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll do the sloth. And I was like, sloth is $100, and that would just be me. So I figured we could both
Awesome.
do
Well, good. We're still glad you found an encounter that you can come out to. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. As I said, I don't know that I've seen which I hadn't been to the Chattanooga Zoo in some time now. It's been a while.
Okay, baby. Nice Charlie. A lot. Just a lot.
His face is so cute.
Yeah, he is adorable, isn't he?
Tiny. How big is the farm?
We have 30 acres here.
Wow.
8 different lodging and accommodations that you can stay at. Everywhere from is roughing it from a glamp site or the top of the horse barn with no central heat or air.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
To this barn, which is sleeps our most, and it's the most luxurious.
Cool.
We have some covered wagons that you can stay in,
That's cool.
and they are climate controlled.
Oh, that's neat. I did a covered wagon at.
Oh, you can see the veins in his ears
Mhm,
when he
it's
turns to the
crazy,
light.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like very vascular. That's crazy. I'm so little. Oh, no. You did no. You're just so sweet, huh? It's just sitting here. I was like, yeah, this is fine. I know those ears probably make him anxious.
Grant, do you have a radio?
Did you want to get down? I don't know if that's down.
I don't know where you think you would go. Would you be curious?
Could we go out and explore?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything's closed off, so he can't escape on us.
I'm gonna go see.
See what he does.
So what you want to do? What do you want to do, baby doll?
It's camera shy.
He's like, this is a new place.
Check it out. Get comfortable. He's so little baby. Oh.
You can't hide in the corner, baby.
Take a picture of that.
That doesn't help, silly boy.
You're nervous, darling. It's okay. We're not gonna eat you.
You're okay, big boy.
We're not gonna eat you, baby. Oh, it's okay.
I thought you'd be more curious, little buddy.
No.
Yeah,
This is
you
dog.
were just finding a corner to hide and be comfortable, weren't you, so baby? Yeah, you were just being comfortable, weren't you? Yeah.
It's okay.
He's like, nope, just needed to find a cat corner. Just stay in the corner and hide.
So sweet.
Which if there was any kind of like shelving or cabinets or something, they would hide under them, just like
Yeah.
most animals do. When we first got Gwen, she would hide underneath cabinets all the time.
Oh.
So they have like heat lamps in their enclosure? Or?
They don't. Mm-mm. The main house, thank goodness, the owners are okay with it being warm.
Yeah.
So it stays pretty toasty.
Is that where all those sheepdogs were?
Yes,
Okay.
those are our Great Pyrenees. They are our guard dogs for the farm. So they do a lot of our taking care of us and guarding at night.
Yeah, that's good.
So they do a really good job. We have a Wesson, Smith, and then Remington. So,
Aw. They were very pretty.
oh yeah. And as you leave Wesson, if he's out and about, he'll chase your car to the gate and then do circles as long as he's on the left side of your car. So it's pretty fun. They're all really good dogs.
Yeah.
When I first started here, that was the first animal that I really had to take care of. Is they had puppies, and there was 8 of them.
Oh my goodness.
And those are some of the biggest, messiest puppies you've ever seen in your life.
Sounds like a haunted house, sorry.
So jumping, if walking is effort of 1, low speed like that, jumping is also effort of 1. Jumping moderate speed is effort of 1.2. Jumping top speed 45 miles an hour, getting it done across the desert is only effort of like 3 times walking, where a human it's effort of 15 to 20 times walking. So they're jumping by the force of the springs, not by muscular effort. And that is how the kangaroo can cover something on the order of 15 miles a day in the desert on an extremely limited calorie budget. Now these ones are all babies, so you see them taking a bunch of short hops. An adult male kangaroo can jump at least 20 feet from a standstill. The lines in this floor are 16 feet apart. So starting from the doorway, you jump over your head, because that's what 20 feet would be. On subsequent jumps, if it's already moving, an adult male kangaroo can jump nearly twice that. So an adult male kangaroo, this farm being 64 feet long, could cover this entire building in 2 jumps. The Wikipedia tells you that the top speed for a kangaroo is 45 miles an hour for a male. YouTube appears to show a number of videos with kangaroos keeping up with cars doing 55 miles an hour. Now I'm aware that it can be possible to make some videos look like things are going on that are not. So that's not a hill I'm going to die on. But it does show kangaroos that appear to be keeping up with cars doing 55. So they're absolutely get it done, moving out kind of animals. The normal family group for red kangaroos, and these are all red kangaroos, the normal family group for red kangaroos is 1 male, 50 females. So if you want to be the 1 male, 49, you gotta go.
Yeah.
And once you are the 1 male, every other one is looking to take you out. The kangaroos have a method of surviving drought that is brutal but effective. When a drought starts, a drought in a desert place can last for as much as 2 years, and or even longer. And so they go in 50 females, 1 male, so the 1 male is statistically insignificant to the group number. So at the start of the drought, they got 50. If the drought is long and half of them die, that gets down to 25, right? But at the start of the drought, they all throw all the babies away. So that caps the demand on mothers' bodies. If they were going to have a mantra, a female kangaroo mantra would be live to have more at all costs. And so they throw the babies away. That gives them the best odds of surviving the drought. So if they go through the drought with 50 kangaroos, well, you know, if 25 of them survive the drought, well, all of those females have 2 on deck, ready to be delivered at any time. They don't make Pitocin during the drought because a malnourished or dehydrated kangaroo doesn't make Pitocin. So when the drought ends, they all are ready to deliver 2 babies. A drought in a desert place ends with extremely heavy rainfall generally, so everything turns lush and green even in the desert. And the kangaroos just straight gorge themselves for the next several weeks. And so they go from, they started with 50, they ended the drought with the strongest 25. Right after the drought, they're renourished, rehydrated, they all birth a baby, now they're at 50. Within a few weeks, they're all overweight and they all birth again, and now they're at 75. So they come out of a drought larger in number and stronger by individual than they went into the drought. And that is why kangaroos are absolutely prolific in Australia. These are all red kangaroos, but in addition to reds, there's eastern greys, western greys, a couple other kinds of kangaroos, a few kinds of wallabies. Between kangaroos and wallabies, there are about 55 million kangaroos in Australia, which is outnumbering humans at least 3 to 1. They're like the white-tailed deer of Australia. Their spot in the food chain is dingoes will prey on kangaroos, but you know they can only get the weak, the old, the young, whatever. They're absolutely no match for a male kangaroo, and the male will defend his mob with his life. So there's not really anything that significantly preys on kangaroos. The thing that ends a kangaroo is other kangaroos or droughts. Starvation. In the wild, a male kangaroo's size is limited by its lifespan. A male kangaroo never stops growing. They grow forever. If they are alive, they are growing. So in the wild, a male kangaroo is doing well to live 5 years. In captivity, we don't hunt them, we don't shoot them, we don't run them down with trucks, chase them off cliffs, poison them, anything else. Also, we don't leave unneutered males together. That's why this one is bright red and those 2 are not. Those 2 are neutered males. And we don't leave unneutered males together so they don't off each other. So in captivity, a male kangaroo can live 20 years and they never stop growing. In captivity, the record for an adult male kangaroo is 6'7", and that is standing on the ground, 6'7", 8.5 feet nose to tail. That was a kangaroo named Roger, and we have the genetics on both the male and the female side here to grow kangaroos that are that big. The father of all of our female kangaroos just passed not due to natural causes. He was 10 years old, he was 6'4" and 250. The father of our male kangaroo, our breeder outside, on the day that ours was born, his father was 6'2" and 225 at 8 years old. So we have the genetics and the intention to grow a world record size kangaroo here, if it works out. But that also is the reason that we feed our kangaroos all the way to 18 months old with bottles. Nutritionally, they don't need them beyond 10 months. They can survive without them at 9 months. But socially, the longer that you can get a kangaroo to keep taking the ball, the friendlier animal you will have. And that is why I'm raising him for the breeder. Is the breeder saw one of our TikTok videos of our full-size adult male outside, and we walk up and go, "Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?" And he comes up and gives you a kiss. And that is not normal for a male kangaroo. And he's like, "I gotta have one of those." So he sent us this guy right here to raise for him. And not only it's a massive financial commitment to keep giving kangaroos bottles for that long, you're a rehabber, so you know what synthetic Escalac costs. And,
Is that what you get in Escalac?
synthetic, it can't be the goat kind, it has to be the purple band full synthetic. And so we are going through about $50 per day per kangaroo on Escalac here. And we feed them to 18 months. And time-wise, when they are 7 months old, and you absolutely have to start feeding right at 7 months or you'll never get a friendly kangaroo. So time-wise, at 7 months, they're eating 5 bottles a day. So they're in my living room, playpen for, a couple for the first month. And then at 8 months, they go down to 3 a day, then they come down here. And at 10 months, they go down to 2 a day, and then we feed them all the way to 18 months. And that is why we have friendly kangaroos and other places do not. And a lot of the zoos that you go to that have a walkthrough with kangaroos, and you come out of it and you're like, "Oh, they're so friendly, they come right up to the path." Two come to the path. Those are the 2 that were bottle fed. The other ones lay somewhere near the path and know that you're not allowed to get off. Take a step off that path and see how fast they dart. But not come at you, just run away.
You know, it's funny because we have white-tailed deer too, and they loved you until you took the bottle away.
Yeah.
And then it was like once you realized, like there was it was something shut off.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, of course, it's not 18 months either. You know, it's more like 5 months.
If you stop feeding kangaroo at 10 months, it'll not be from after it's done.
Okay. Okay.
So that is specific, and I'm not aware of anyone else. They might be out there, I don't know. I'm not aware of anybody else that feeds kangaroos the way that we do, but I'm not aware of anyone else that has friendly kangaroos the way that we do. So, the math on it though, there's no justification to it, because you could buy an adult male kangaroo for $700 or $800. A female can go as much as 10 grand. But, 250 times the number of days that we're feeding these things, figure it math on it. There's no good reason except that we want to have friendly kangaroos to be able to interact with. And that's why we do it. Same way camels, no financial justification for keeping a camel around. They're just cool animals and I like them. But the zoo that our 2 adults came from, the dad zoo, they did 300 to 400 camel rides, 364 days a year. Here on a crazy busy day, they might do 20. And sometimes I get some negative comments on my video because I want like, the whole time he does a ride. The camel trainer tells me, man. The camel trainer tells me I'm spoiled and lazy, and if I would hit him with a stick, we'd be done with him mumbling. But I want to hit an animal. So he mumbles. Sometimes people make negative comments, but if he didn't want to walk, you're not going to make a 1,700-pound camel walk.
Well, isn't that their natural behavior?
It is, but people that don't, you get the keyboard warriors out there that have no idea what you do or why you do it or how you do it, and they got all kind of, Monday morning quarterbacking to do on how you run your life and how you care for your animals. Not that they never own one or have any genuine knowledge about them whatsoever, but it doesn't stop them from
So we need to
just
sanitize our hands, and we are out of hand sanitizer in this one, so we're gonna walk down here and hit the hand sanitizer first.
And we had 3 seasons and like.
Oh, it's called what?
Bandit Patrol.
Were you on Animal Planet?
No, we were on Nat Geo Line.
Oh, okay. Do you know Rick, the reptile guy? He did wild transport.
No.
Oh, he's the guy that the camels came from.
Oh, okay, okay. But it was just like the negative comments were like unbelievable. Unbelievable. My 19-year-old son, they were like, "Why did you send your son in there with those raccoons to grab him to give him vaccines?" And I'm just like, he's 19. He's a man.
Yeah, we get some crazies out there that sometimes have some
They
things to say.
need something better.
And I don't know, I go back and forth on it. We have some friends that have Our Life Adventures. They have 9 monkeys live in their house.
Okay, okay.
And they get negative comments. And he's like a big country boy, and he sits there and goes, "Look at what this idiot has." Well, my gosh. Tell me about all your monkeys and how you do it better than nothing. You know, he just makes a big joke out of it. My wife doesn't really like me to make jokes out of people's comments, and she takes them to heart and it's pretty soul.
Well, and
But,
they really are my children. They didn't think it all of me. I was just like people are stupid. You just have to understand that people are stupid. And there's no cure for stupidity. But yet, we feed our deer fresh goat's milk.
yeah.
But I'm sure the kangaroos need higher.
The goat's milk chemically doesn't agree with them, and it'll kill them.
Okay, okay.
Biggest limiting factor to keeping kangaroos around is
He's just gonna
toxoplasmosis.
hold on to you
So
just like a little tree.
toxoplasmosis.
So with his claws, he's gonna wrap around your torso just like this. All you have to do is just put your hand underneath his booty and just give a nice slow pets just like this.
Yes.
I'll give you a little hug and just put your hand underneath his booty. There we go.
Does he bite?
He doesn't. I mean, he might look for some food if he gets hungry. We can break out some food. But they are very, very docile. They were conditioned from a really young age to enjoy this type of interaction. And as long as we're nice and calm and relaxed, then he will be too.
Mommy, do you want to have a turn? You can. Just right now.
Just sit back and relax. All he's doing is just taking a nap. Emma, relax your shoulders. She has like, what, 25 sloth stuffed animals and everything sloth. Not a whole lot of people can say that they've held a sloth. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. It's like a little toddler. The Dash is 8 months old. He's still got a lot of growing left to do. You can see how dark he is right now. As he gets older, he'll lighten up a lot like Flash there. What do they eat? So he eats a mixture of, right now he's on mostly, everything has to be real small for him because he can't really chew, like the adult sloths can. So he gets a mixture of brown rice, shaved sweet potatoes, and a really high quality soaked dog food that's mixed into it, and that's where he gets his protein from. And we also chop up some squash and zucchini real finely.
Mommy, I think it's your turn. If you want to. Okay. I'm a little scared.
No, he's just gonna grab one of them arm here.
He's just hanging on to you.
He just thinks you're a tree.
He is really cute.
Here, one second.
Mom, it's your turn.
Well, you're still welcome to pet him and everything as she's holding him.
Okay. Let go.
So when they're looking upside down like that, some scientists speculate that that's actually seeing their way of right side up. And it makes sense because everything else that's in a sloth is geared to be upside down. Everything from their circulatory system, their digestive tract, their, everything, how everything's suspended together to be held in the right place.
I would sit here all day.
Yeah, he's pretty relaxing to hold. Somebody said the other day that we should get a lazy boy and put it in here and offer some sloth naps. They're able to take a nap with him. I think you need a little bit longer than 20 minutes though.
Take our picture
Mhm.
together.
If you want to that chair beside your mom there, I can take a picture of both of you. So we'll switch back over towards the end. You guys got 20 minutes and kind of transferring back and forth a lot for them. It gets to be a little bit much.
Okay.
So towards the end, if you want to hold again, maybe we'll switch back over for the end part.
If something is far from them, just lean back onto their tail.
You think what? He hears that door open, he always gets real curious about who's coming in. So they have really poor eyesight, and since they can't really see that well, their hearing is quite excellent, and their sense of smell is pretty good too.
Where are his ears?
His ears are just behind just a little bit of hair. So if you move the hair back here, you can see that little ear.
Are they like dogs or cats where they like know you?
Yeah, so, yeah, they start to learn your voice, since they can't really see that well, their sense of hearing is pretty good, and so they can hear the difference between, if Kevin were to walk in and start talking, he's gonna know that that's Kevin without even seeing him. Similar to how we tend to know each other's voices and everything. Everybody has a different tone of voice and the way they put inflections behind things that they say. And they do kind of pick their person too, and so if you spend a lot of time with them, usually like my dog, it was supposed to be my dog, but I was still in school when we first got her, and my mom was home a lot more, and she's the one that fed them, she's the one that spent time with them, one that let them outside, and so they do the same thing, if it's mainly one person that takes care of them, that's the person they tend to pick and they tend to favor. And so with Zoe, our first baby sloth that we got, she stayed up at the main house too for the first year that she was here, and she really got attached to Donna because Donna was the one that held her all the time and that would always feed her and everything. And because of that, Donna can't really come down here anymore and do encounters with her because if she's in the same room and she's not holding her, she's just going to be looking for Donna constantly. So. Don't jump up.
They sleep a lot.
They do. So scientists used to think that they slept for upwards to 20 hours a day, but actually after doing a little bit closer research on them and looking at them up close, they realized that a lot of the times they thought they were sleeping, they were just hanging there and not doing anything with their eyes open. So sloths, their diet is really low in caloric content, and so they don't really have a whole lot of energy storage to be able to just be moving around and exploring the trees with nothing else really to do. So if they're not eating and they're not sleeping, they're just hanging there digesting their food. Flash is like, what in the world is out there?
I didn't know how it's
Mhm. Mhm.
She's cute.
Are we related?
No, they did not come from the same facility. So Flash came from a facility where he was basically just observation before we got him. So he was already 3 and quite used to not being interacted with. So it took John really about 2 years of just spending time in there, talking to him, getting him used to him, getting used to his voice, for Flash to even come down, while he was in there and try to interact with him. So it took him a while to get to the point where he would eat food out of our hands. And now he's comfortable with that. That's what his encounters are, is he comes out and hangs out on this branch while he gets his dinner given to him by hand. But he has never offered to climb onto us like our other 2 sloths do. So our other Dash and Zoe both came from a facility that they raise ambassador sloths. So from a really young age, they're already being conditioned to be being held by people. So even before they're weaned, the mothers are clicker trained and have experience with having babies, and they hear the clicker noise, they get a little bit of a treat, and the breeder would borrow baby for just like 10, 15 seconds, and then give baby right back to the mom. Up until the point where they're weaned, around 4 or 5 months old of the mother's own choosing, they're used to being held for almost an hour a day at a time, and they're completely fine with that. So most of the sloths end up becoming ambassador animals, which means that they do genuinely enjoy being held and interacting with people. But occasionally he'll have a few babies that don't. They just kind of tolerate being held and don't really enjoy the interaction. And so those sloths will end up going to a facility similar to a zoo that would just be more observation.
Interesting look for how slow and low energy they seem that they can hang them.
Yeah, and that's because their claws are specifically designed to be able to hang upside down in the trees like that. So they have a locking mechanism that are in their claws that allow them to hang onto the trees like that with no effort. So it is opposite for us. You know, if we were to try to hang onto a branch like that, it requires work, it requires energy and muscles to do that. But for them, being locked onto the branch like that is natural. So the tendons and muscles and everything in their forearms are so tight that clamp down is just relaxed for them. And for them to actually let go or reach out for the next branch, that's what requires work and requires energy to do. So much so that if a sloth were to pass away in the tops of a tree, they would stay in that tree. They would not fall out of the tree. So they would stay there until something either knocked them out of the tree or something rotted. Where were you guys from?
Chicago.
Okay, so that's a good ways.
We drove up from Knoxville this morning.
Yeah.
Lazy days.
Every day is a lazy day for them. And none of our sloths encounter for more than 2 hours a day total. And that's not 2 hours back to back, that's just total spread throughout little encounters throughout the day. So the longest that Dash can encounter for at one time is an hour. So his encounters are 20 minutes at a time, and you can book 3 back-to-back encounters with him. But then he's done for several hours until his next encounter. And he may be done for the rest of the day, it just kind of depends on what people book for, but we never book over 2 hours for any of our sloths a day. And then Flash, he only ever interacts for an hour a day, and that's in the mornings when he comes down for his breakfast. Occasionally he'll hang out longer like he's doing today, or he'll want to come down throughout different times of the day. He'll kind of start tapping on the glass right here, rubbing his nose on the glass. You can see right up here in the corner there's little smear marks where he starts to put his nose and walk it around on there.
How many animals do you have them?
We have over 150 animals. I'm not sure about how many species we have, but it's a lot.
You do encounters with
I just do the sloths. Yeah. Well, I'm the sloth keeper. And so since their eyesight is so bad, their sense of hearing is quite well. And so things that are loud and can be startling are a lot louder to them. And a lot of times they'll kind of tense up and, jump because of that. And their eyesight's so bad that, in the wild, if anything's coming towards a sloth, it's bad news. They want to get away from it. They just want to get to the end of the branch.
She said that when our time was almost up.
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left. I'll let you try to hold again. because like I said, kind of going back and forth is, yeah. If you were to actually look at a sloth's hair under a microscope, it actually has a lot of tiny little micro cracks all throughout those hairs, and that's what allows them in the rainforest to be able to form the moss and algae that's on their backs. So they use that moss and algae in the wild for camouflage. So looking from the bottom of the rainforest up at the back of the sloth, they're pretty much camouflaged into the rest of the rainforest, and they're not moving a whole lot. So. And there's also a variety of moths that live in their fur as well in the wild. They rely on those moths to be able to digest their food. So the waste of the moth that they turn around and they lick up when they groom themselves is where they get the bacteria to digest their food. And that kind of beckons the question, well, how do they digest their food here, since you can see it doesn't have any moths on them. And that's because on day 3, when the sloth is just a little baby, it will climb onto the chest of the mother and lick the mother in the corners of her mouth. And the bacteria that she has in her gut is also in her saliva. When the baby licks that up, that's where the baby first gets just a little bit of that bacteria to start to develop its own bacteria colony.
Wow.
And they'll keep that the rest of their lives as long as everything is just right for them. So temperature requirements, dietary requirements, and everything have to be just right.
Will they ever fall backwards?
They do sometimes. They're like looking around, especially if something they see is interesting and they're trying to figure out what it is. They'll kind of reach for it, or they'll, turn all the way back like that. And we always tell people that the belly of a sloth is really sensitive, and so sometimes even if they do, look all the way back like that and expose their belly, you don't want to ever touch it because they're pretty sensitive to that. But everywhere else on him is pretty good. Well, we got about 5 minutes left. You feeling comfortable enough when I'm holding it? So just remember, as long as we're comfortable and relaxed with him, he's going to be too. You see, he's just holding on just like this. He just thinks I'm a tree. So as long as you're relaxed and comfortable with him, he'll be comfortable with you too. So he's just going to give you a good little hug. You just support him underneath his booty. So just relax. It's just a little baby. It's just giving you a little hug. Breathe.
So you don't ever take them outside, but they pretty much stay.
We do occasionally, so both of them have outdoor enclosures that they can go out to when it's warm enough, especially, not today because it's so rainy and everything, but when it's above 78 degrees, we let them go outside to their outdoor enclosures. And then Dash, since he stays in the house most of the time in their bedroom, he comes down here for his encounters and everything. If it's a kind of a slow day, I'll walk around with him outside, just let him get a little bit of sun if it's nice outside, just to kind of let him get some fresh air and everything. You see how he's just giving you a hug? You can breathe. Buddy.
This was the number one thing on her list.
Well, not a whole lot of kids can say that they've got to hold a sloth or have picture proof of it.
There was somewhere by our house where they were bringing sloths where you can stand in front of it and take a picture, so we were gonna do that on the list. We're like, oh, those are way down there.
Where did you hear about us?
My husband found it, like, I think we were just Googling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he just Googled it. He's out in the car. Like, sorry, I'm going.
Sorry.
He's fly. Yeah, we're driving through the whole state, pretty much everywhere. And
Yeah.
we definitely have to stop.
Do you have family in Knoxville or no? Just kind of
We
doing a
just
road
did-
trip?
Yeah, we did Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and Smoky Mountain.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get this flyer from you, please.
Little fly.
Please. There's a flyer.
You're okay. It's off.
I'm slowly relaxing.
Look here, Emma. You can smile like you're excited. Okay. They're so cute when they look upside down.
Yeah. I like to know the different thoughts that go through their head when they're trying to figure out who we are. He's just good at fly. There's a fly that'll fly.
Will they eat them?
Yeah, if they're bothering him enough, yeah, they'll try to. In the wild, they eat a variety of small bugs and insects. And so if something were to fly right on their face, yeah, they would. Hey, big bud. He said, "Where's that fly?"
So people live here.
Yep, John and Donna, they live
They
up
own
in
it.
the house, yeah.
It feels like this guy in my class named Taylor is grabbing me
Here, take your milk, go out.
because he does kind of have like sharp nails. It feels like he's like, so I'm like, it's just Taylor.
Oh, it was the cutest sloth, like your dreams coming true. It's very much everything's sloth.
You didn't see another fly?
Please get it away, Mom.
There it goes. Sit back.
I like seeing it. I'll get it away. I'll get it away.
It's gone. I'm so afraid of flies.
Please, Mom.
He doesn't like the flies
He
either.
doesn't like, he just brushed it away.
Little squeeze.
Now time is up now, so I'm gonna get it. When he goes to reach over with this hand, he's gonna reach over, so just don't let him smack you in the face, okay? Alright, there you go.
I love you.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you so
Learned a
much.
little bit more about them.